Which one of you has the will to join my crew? Hello and welcome. It's me, Marls44, and welcome to this One Piece discussion about who the next Straw Hat and final Straw Hat will be. So there's been a lot of talk about this recently. Again, there's been so much talk about this during Wano with O-Tama and Yamato, and now there's so much going on with like Stussy and Vivi showing up again, and Bonney, and there's just, oh my gosh, there's so many candidates who could be the next Straw Hat, and I want to talk about what I think about who are the possibilities and why they would be chosen, and just all of that. Like, who are the possibilities to be the next Straw Hat? First off, let's list who, in my opinion, who we have to kind of consider. And I'm talking about everybody. I will say we only have 2 female Straw Hats and everybody else is male. So I think there's a high chance that we're gonna get another female. I did think we were gonna get another female before I learned about Jinbei. But then once Jinbei said he would join, it's like, okay, the last one is going to be a female. And yeah, we only have 2, and I do feel like there's a pretty good chance we're going to get one more. It just makes sense to me, at least. Every candidate I'm about to list who have a good possibility of joining is a female, except for one. But we'll get into that. So first off, let's get into the obvious ones right now. Right now, above Egghead, Morgans is flying up there. Not really sure why he's there, but Vivi is on board his ship. She lost her father, she was almost killed by the government, and she got away, I guess. I guess maybe Sabo was even able to rescue her, and maybe that's why, he got that whole thing about he kidnapped her. It wasn't really that, it was he rescued her and got her onto Morgan's ship, maybe. Or Morgan's said, bring her onto my ship. Maybe that's where Sabo is anyways. Who knows? But anywho, Vivi has no place to go. She can't go back to Alabasta, or she will, probably be hunted down by the government and die. And her father's gone. So she kind of has nowhere to really go. And a lot of, crew members that end up joining kind of don't have somewhere to be. Like, they need to find a place they call home. And Vivi's already been on board the ship. She did kind of call the ship home. It's just she had to stay in Alabasta to do her royal duties. But now she can't go back there. And there's a pretty good chance that she could end up joining the crew. So she's our first candidate. She'd be a good authority princess figure for the group. And it would also help her in a way, because she could eventually become the queen of her kingdom. I mean, she's going to be, obviously, but her adventure with the Straw Hats could help her get there. The only issue I see with her is she's similar to Nami, which is the reason she didn't end up joining the crew in the first place, where she doesn't really have much, like, in terms of fighting, and she might not be there for fighting, but maybe she's gotten stronger somehow. Maybe she's learned how to fight in some way, and she's able to join because of that, because that is the reason she didn't really join from the writer's perspective of Oda, because she was going to be the same as Nami, and in that way of she has what she has to offer, but she can't really fight. And you're not going to give her another weapon like Nami has. Like, that'd just be redundant, right? So maybe she could use something else. That's the only issue I see, is that similarity is still there from what we know right now. So Stussy, she's a former Rocks pirate member, which is really cool. She's super strong, and I'd love to see another strong, like, female character. Yes, Robin's very strong, but it'd be really cool to see one that's like, kind of Jinbei level, or like close to that. Like, who? Because we don't have somebody who's that strong yet, and that's someone who I'm like, I want to see. But Robin has grown a lot, and I am very happy about that as well. But I feel like when we get that last female member, they're probably going to be very strong. And it is partially why I'm like, yeah, Vivi might not be that member then. But Stussy, former Rocks pirate, she's a clone, which is her own unique thing as well. And she has a vampire devil fruit. And that's really sick on its own. I thought vampires were gonna be like their own race in One Piece, but no, it's a fruit, so that's cool. And she's got this whole thing going on about like, she only really listens to Vegapunk obviously, because she's a clone. And Vegapunk is most likely gonna die soon enough, but then she has nowhere to go, so she just goes with the Straw Hats. So it's similar to Robin, and then we find out more of her backstory, and that would be really interesting. So she'd be super interesting, and she's kind of been built up in a really good way that could make her the next Straw Hat as well. And a really good candidate for that too. So the next one is Jewelry Bonney. She's got a lot going on too. Apparently she probably has her father seems to most likely have some tragic kind of past, because Vegapunk keeps refusing to tell her about it. And she just showed up at the area with, you know, the bubble that her father made with the Kuma that has his memories in it. So she's probably gonna find that out. We'll probably get some like kind of similar to Law, where we got some kind of Straw Hat feeling past, because that's what it felt like with Law. Man, it will be really interesting, because she might have her own past that we'll learn about later on, because it's Kuma's past, not hers. Sorry. So she'll have her own past later on that we could learn about. And she's kind of in that same situation where it seems like she really has no place to be other than her trying to save her father. Her crew might be gone now. They might have all been captured and by the government and everything, and she got away, or killed by Blackbeard, because I don't remember seeing them there when Blackbeard was on that island. She really has nowhere to go, similar to Stussy, except for she has her father who's climbing to the top of Marie Joie, and he might pass soon too. So it's like, she probably pretty much has no one, and she could kind of be involved with the Ancient Kingdom, which is another really interesting thing too. On top of her Devil Fruit, which is really, really strong as well, and could be very interesting when used in like fights and everything, because it's super broken. That would be really cool and really unique to add to the crew as well. So she's a really solid candidate besides Stussy. I think her and Stussy are the most likely candidates. I think Vivi's a really likely one too, but I think Jewelry Bonney and Stussy are just, they're so perfectly set up that either of them could actually be a crew member. We could be bamboozled again, but I don't think so. We're entering, like, this is the first arc of the final saga, and I don't think that Oda's gonna wanna add a new member in later on, unless they've already been established, like, right here, right? So it's kind of like, you don't want to establish all that into the final saga. Have all your members for it, right? And that's why right at the beginning sounds like the best spot. And that's also why I'm like, This is, yeah, Stussy and Jewelry Bonney are looking both pretty good. And it'd be interesting to have another member of the next, the worst generation. I almost said the next generation. The worst generation as part of their crew. So now I'm going to go a little further back into the past a little bit. And we're going to talk about possibilities. Because I think some of the things we learned about now open up some possibilities. But first I want to cover someone who I think still has who I think will be joining the crew later on. And I mean later on into the final saga. I know that sounds weird because of what I just said, but hear me out. This person is going to be the extra crew member, I believe. I believe O-Tama is going to be an extra crew member and not really going to take part in fights and stuff that much, or just do much at all, but she will be there and she will be important at moments. She'll be a lovable character. She will be like Shanks and Buggy on Roger's ship, similar to that. So she will be the Shanks and Buggy on Roger's ship, except she'll be on Luffy's. So she'll be that +1 crew member. So she's not the final crew member, she'll just be an extra. And the reason I believe this is because Luffy promised her that when she becomes, because she wanted to join the crew, and he said that when she becomes a master ninja, she can join. So it'd be interesting to have her. Now, considering the fact that she could be the actual final member would be very interesting too, because she could come back later and be that final member. She could basically be a beast tamer because of her whole like dongo thing that she like pulls out of her cheek and then like feeds it to an animal and it like tames them. So she could fight with beasts, with like animals and other stuff like that. And that'd be really, really sick. So as an actual final member, that would be cool. But if she's not that kind of final member, and maybe she uses those beasts not to fight most of the time, like sometimes she could, maybe use them to try to defend people, but she's more so like, she helps with like transportation and stuff, right? She gives a bird something and it flies like a giant bird. And because we've seen those before, and it just flies them quickly to like another side of the island so they can figure out stuff. Like she'll be a very good support kind of character that way, I think. But if she is an actual final member, it'd be really interesting to see her fight that way with the beasts. So that, and with animals. So that's very interesting. I think there is a decent chance she could be a final member, but I think it's more clear to say she's going to be that +1 like Shanks and Buggy were on Roger's crew. She's just going to be that child that isn't really going to fight that much, but she's more so just there because Roger let, them come on the crew. Well, Roger let Buggy come on the crew. Roger, found Shanks in a chest. That's different. I think O-Tama will join the crew no matter what, and I think there's a solid chance, like a good 80 to 90% chance that she's just a +1, the younger member, and not the final member. But I won't say that she can't be the final member, because I think there's a very solid chance she still could be. So moving on to a couple other characters who I think could be, are two others are Carrot and Yamato. Now, okay, I'm gonna say this right now. I think O-Tama is a much better like Yamato than Yamato is. Like O-Tama is just better in terms of the relationship with Ace and Luffy and just the way things went. Although it would be funny if Yamato kind of still joined because, Now, you might be wondering, wait, why am I bringing up Carrot and Yamato? They're like, Yamato's back on Wano, still on Wano, and Carrot went all the way back to Zou. So I think Carrot's a much more likely possibility than Yamato. I think out of all these members I'm mentioning, there's only one person who I think has a lower possibility than Yamato. But I want to bring her up just because. So first, let's cover Carrot. So, in regards to both of these, I'm considering what's happening right now with Vivi, where she's above this guy. Yes, she was almost killed. However, Oda's showing us in a way, just because she's the ruler of a country, or future ruler, doesn't necessarily mean she might not be able to join. And I think that's what is kind of partially also being hinted at too, in a way, that, opens up these possibilities. Now, do I think they'll join? Maybe not. But I think Carrot's a pretty decent possibility still. I don't think she's being pushed to the side. Now, of course, that opens up Rebecca too. But if I had to choose between Vivi and Rebecca, Vivi makes more sense. They're in the same position. Both of them are in the exact same position, except for Vivi had all that time with the crew. Vivi had traveled with the crew for a long time and built that bond. And in the situation she's in right now, it makes so much more sense that she would join and not Rebecca. So that's why I'm not even talking about Rebecca, because it's like, if you're gonna pick one of the two, obviously Vivi makes a million times more sense. There's like no chance for Rebecca, sorry. It's not that I don't like her character, she's great, it makes so much more sense. So back to Carrot, yeah, she's the ruler of Zou, or the future ruler of Zou. I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be the actual ruler now though. And the thing with that is Zunisha is connected to Joy Boy. Zunisha is kind of Joy Boy's partner. And who rules Zou who's on Zunisha's back? Carrot. Now, I don't think Carrot would exactly join the crew. I think there's a much more likely possibility that Carrot leads Zunisha to the final island or islands where, enormous battle breaks out, and they come with the Straw Hat Grand Fleet as well, where not together, but like separately, but Zunisha comes there as well because she wants to help fight with them. I think that's much more likely, but I do think this does still kind of open up the possibility of Carrot might just want to join the crew. Carrot might just be able to still kind of join the crew with this possibility that Vivi is now an option again. And that means Carrot can still be an option. And like, since she's supposed to be the ruler of Zou, maybe she has to get stronger. Maybe she has to venture with them. Dogstorm and Cat Viper were on Roger's ship, right? Because they followed Odin. It could be very interesting that way if Carrot gets to join, and also I think that Carrot could join. It just seems like it fits somewhat because Zunisha is connected with Joy Boy and Luffy is Joy Boy, and it's like she's the future ruler. And after she's done whatever training or whatever she needs to do, or if it's just she's now the ruler just automatically, she might decide that screw it, I want to go help Joy Boy in a way. I mean, Luffy, but she doesn't know, I think. But she could find out, and she might decide to. I don't know. Like, there are possibilities. I think Carrot's much less likely. That's why I'm talking about her now. I think the three most likely are the ones I've already talked about. And O-Tama as well. Because O-Tama is, like, kind of obvious at this point. But what role she plays isn't obvious, so. But I figured I'd at least talk about Carrot, because I think she's still not totally out of the clear yet. Speaking of Yamato, though, because I mentioned Yamato, she has a lot of stuff with Luffy and Ace as well, but O-Tama has more. O-Tama has more connections with both of them and is a much better fleshed out character than Yamato is in all of those regards. But Yamato is interesting in her own right because she's a former emperor's daughter, wants to be like Odin, and because of this whole Vivi thing, like I mentioned, after things are finished up in Wano, she could end up just coming to the crew and joining. So that could be interesting too, and she could get stronger as well. So that is why I do not think she's out of the clear as well yet, but I think she's even less likely than Carrot, just because O-Tama just seems like a better choice. But who knows? We could get Yamato showing up with O-Tama, we get both of them. Like, and there's our +1, O-Tama, and our final member, Yamato. Who knows? Alright, so with all those candidates up, we got one more candidate to talk about. And it's kind of a mystery kind of candidate of like, we don't know where this is going with this. So I do not think this is going to happen, but it would be funny, it'd be cool, and it could be interesting. Hancock. I'd say she's definitely the least likely out of everybody here. And the reason being is because we already have a warlord. We have Jinbei. But I think she still could be interesting in her own right. She's a strong female character. She's very attached to Luffy, and of course after that whole thing that happened with Blackbeard and Navy and everything, I know Rayleigh's there, but she might just decide to go and be with Luffy because she could be concerned about him. And then she ends up staying with the crew and then Sanji oogles over her and she oogles over Luffy. And every time Sanji oogles over her, she's always like stepping on him, and it just becomes like a shit show. And it's always a shit show on that ship, but it's a wonderful, funny shit show. And it's so wholesome. And like, I could just imagine Zoro and her not really getting along well because she, get mad at him too, but then Zoro just keep threatening to like cut her up or something, and it'd be wonderful. But we do already have a warlord, so I think it's definitely the least possible, because I think it also, everybody who I've talked about previously, we don't have that kind of person, if that makes sense. Excluding Vivi, because Vivi's a princess, she's someone of royalty, and apparently Sanji's royalty too. So now that we know Sanji's royalty as well, I think obviously that's another thing. But she is a different kind of royalty than Sanji. So that's also something different as well. She's not the same, because Germa's like an evil royalty. She's not. She's an actual, she's a princess of a kingdom. Stussy is a former Rocks pirate, and a CP0 agent, and a clone. So that's really interesting. Jewelry Bonney, even though we have Zoro and Luffy who are part of the worst generation, we had Law with us, but he never ended up joining the crew, and that's okay. That that makes sense. It fits that he didn't. Same with Kid. Like, it would be weird if they joined the crew. But Bonnie's built up that way where she seems like she could be. And she has that worst generation thing going on. And even though Luffy and Zoro are part of it, it'd still be interesting to have one of those members, one of those captains, end up joining the crew. And then we have O-Tama, who is Kid and a ninja, and she has, like, you know, the thing where she beast tamer, like I talked about. Carrot, she's a minx. We haven't had anything like that. Like, that's super interesting. Sure, Chopper's an animal, but a minx is completely different. Chopper ate a devil fruit. She didn't. She has this whole, like, the Sulong form. That's what it's called. I just remembered. Took me a couple seconds. But yeah, she has the whole Sulong form as well, which is really cool. And its own thing as well. And Yamato, who is a daughter of a former emperor that Luffy beat up. So that's also interesting. But then we look at Hancock, and Hancock is super interesting, but also she is also a former warlord. So that's the only thing, is she doesn't have that, like, super interesting kind of part to her, but she still does have a devil fruit. She still is, like, super strong. She still basically runs her own kind of place because she's the ruler of Amazon Lily. So she still kind of has that to her. So I do feel like she's worth talking about. There is a kind of slim possibility that she could join, because we don't know what's going to happen with her. Like, we know what's been happening with everybody else who are former warlords. Mostly. We don't know what's going to happen with her. We know Rayleigh's there, but where is she? Like, is she going to go somewhere because now the Navy's after her? And where does she go? Like, maybe she does end up with Luffy because she wants to be with him and protect him. But also because it's like, if she has to be hunted down, she wants to be hunted down with Luffy or something. Like, something that would make sense to her. But I feel she'd be interesting. And I wanted to at least cover her a little bit. Alright, well, that is it for this discussion about who could possibly be the next Straw Hat. I wanted to give my thoughts on every single person I kind of thought of. Like, I thought of some other people too, but I'm like, not really worth talking about, on top of the fact I'm almost 100% sure that we're getting a female character as our last Straw Hat as well. So it's like, it was much more worth talking about all those characters. And I just wanted to cover all of that, express my opinions on each one and what makes sense for each. I do think, as I mentioned, Stussy and Bonney seem like the most likely candidates, but all of the others are still up there. I'd say, even though I talked about Vivi first, she's under Stussy and Bonney, but above everybody else, because in this situation, what's happening right now with chapter 1074 and 1075, it just makes the most sense. So yeah, that's all, guys. Let me know what you think and who you think could possibly join the crew next out of all the characters. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you guys next time.